All right, this is Best Ball Night School. I'm Jeremiah. This is Ed. Ed, we got something cooking already. We have a big board. We're starting with the 102. The first pick off the board is CMC. With all the news that we have in free agency, Kirk Cousins coming to Atlanta. I've got queued up right now Bijan Robinson. Why shouldn't I go Bijan Robinson? But also, why should I go Bijan Robinson with the 102?
Ooh, yeah. If going Bijan here makes sense now, quite honestly, to do that. I think that you have a legitimate argument between him and Breece Hall as to who is the RB2. I think his ADP is going to continue to get steamed up. So going here is something. Going Bijan here makes a lot of sense. To not go Bijan, and you still have those elite wide receivers here in Lamb, Hill. However, this is a big board, right? You want to basically get a pretty different lineup build than most other people, and I think going Bijan at the 102 would definitely do that. If you're looking to do Bijan here, I wouldn't hate it because, like I said, I think between him and Hall, you've got a good argument. Just flip a coin as to who's the RB2 behind McCaffrey. I think. What are you thinking about, Jeremiah?
Now, I know we get the 102 a lot of times. It's going to be CD Lamb. You can make the clear-cut case for Tyreek Hill. All these players are in a band. And anything past a 102 prior to the Kirk Cousins news, we were going with Justin Jefferson or at least sprinkling in a lot of Justin Jefferson. So now we've got Bijan Robinson. I call it yanking the steering wheel. We yank the steering wheel. It's not too much further up that Bijan can go. He had been at 7 overall. So to put him 2 overall isn't some crazy jump, but it's not something that you see so frequently. I'm going to go with Bijan Robinson. And on the turn, the wraparound picks, I'm going to look at London. If I lose out on London, fine. I've got myself an anchor running back. What I will consider is that huge gap between the first running back and my second. Remember, we could go all the way to Kendre Miller. We've pushed the boundaries before. I'm going to put on the board, I'm going to go with Bijan Robinson. And he is now on our squad. He's our first pick with the 102. I'll just add on. I looked at my exposures. I had Drake London, 40%. Kyle Pitts, 23%. Big boost, right? Some drafts outstanding. I had Bijan Robinson, but I didn't have near the amount that I thought I had. So here I am trying to adjust very quickly. And in these couple of picks, these couple of drafts that I've had where I've had the 101, the 102, and the 103, hey, good fortune, I have clicked the button on Bijan Robinson. We're just getting some numbers up. So we are welcoming him to the squad.
I love it, Jeremiah. And speaking about the Kirk Cousins news, as you said, he recently signed with the Falcons, 4-year, $180 million contract with $100 million guaranteed. How are you now approaching the Falcons in these best ball drafts? What do you think Cousins does for the rest of the skill position players there?
Oh, I love the fit. We're really just trading out the bullishness that we had in Minnesota. Now it's down in Atlanta. Remember, Kirk Cousins supported TJ Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson, and Jordan Addison. Now we have the perfect blend with Bijan Robinson in the pass game, boosting his PPR stock. This is a 0.5 PPR game. It'll still boost the stock of Bijan Robinson. Drake London will be a smash. 69 receptions, 109 targets last year. That's going to go way up. Kyle Pitts is going to be unleashed. He's got a 1,000-yard receiving season in his bag already. Kirk Cousins at 129 ADP. He's a QB 19 in the 11th round. Great price on all the Falcons. They're going to go way up, but it's something that we really like to see. Ed, how do you feel?
Yeah, I'm just as bullish, Jeremiah. I know that we talked about taking Bijan there at the 102. I can't hate it based upon what we think Kirk Cousins is going to do for this offense. Also, you talked about London perhaps getting him on the turn there. I think that with Kirk Cousins now there in Atlanta, that's probably the right place for him to go. You're probably looking at him around that same type of area that like Marvin Harrison Jr. is going in the draft, right? Or at least that's how I would value him with Cousins on board. Same thing with Pitts. His ADP has already skyrocketed a bit. He was going around pick 90, like not even a week or two ago. I think he's in the 70s now. And I think it's going to continue to climb. I think you're probably going to see him up around where Dalton Kincaid's going at around pick 65. There is some risk there, though, that I think a lot of people who are bullish like us, I think don't maybe want to recognize, insofar as Cousins is coming off the injury, the ACL, may take some time to recover from that. I think we are still, very bullish on this offense, though, even though there is some risk there, I think. But you definitely want to get that exposure up if you haven't gotten it already. So not only did Cousins sign, Jeremiah, but I think we got some other signings that happened, right?
For Russ Wilson, goes to the Steelers. 1 year, $1.2 million. What do you think of that?
It's a great contract, right? Who wouldn't want to sign Russ for that amount of money with the Broncos paying the majority of the tab there? We already talked about in other episodes of Best Ball Night School getting some exposure to Wilson late in drafts with Steelers type of stack. It's come to fruition here. I'll be interested to see if basically how the Steelers offense is going to skew with him. Are they going to go more run heavy with Arthur Smith in town, protecting Russell Wilson so that Najee Harris is a value? Or are they going to pass it out a little bit more? There's a consolidated target tree there. Now that Diontae Johnson is out, you've got Pickens, Freiermuth, and even some Jalen Warren sprinkling in for some targets. So it'll be interesting to see how it develops there. I still think that you definitely want to prioritize Russ as a late round pick, although I think the Steelers are going to be a little reluctant to just give it over to him and say, you know what, hey, we wasted a first round pick on Kenny Pickett, right? So there is a chance there. And for that reason, I'm still probably taking him in the later rounds, although he should definitely go higher than round 18 at this point. What do you think, Jeremiah? Where are you at with Russell Wilson?
To your point, in that late band, we like him. We are going to be wary of the fact that if he does stink it up, he goes to training camp, he's not just going to be given some long leash here. He's the perfect pressure point of run balance to passing in this Arthur Smith offense. Russ is going to rely on Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, a lot of dump offs as well. Russ is very keen on dumping off to his running backs. Jalen Warren is going to boost up big time. I like going after him now in these underdog drafts. And then it's going to be bearish to me for Pat Freiermuth. I want to see a little bit more out of Russell Wilson passing the ball over the seams, over the middle. But that could be something I could be wrong on. We'll find out. And then for George Pickens, without Diontae Johnson, it's wheels up for him. He's ready to take over the wide receiver 1 role. Now, the degree of pass volume, will it be similar to what Ryan Tannehill did in Tennessee? We'll have to see with that. Desmond Ridder, same thing. I like Russ in this situation. He's got pressure off of him. He can still do his moon balls on 3rd and long, and we love the dump off. We love the skill position players right now for Pittsburgh. It's really something where we talked about, even if there was just like a 50% shot, not even a 100% shot, that the Steelers improved at quarterback, how would we feel? Now we're here because we've gotten one of those quarterbacks, and we feel much, much better. Just ask anybody who's been drafting George Pickens. Now we've had Gardner Minshew. He signed with the Raiders. His ADP, 234, round 20, 2 years, $25 million. How do you feel about this?
He's now, I think, one of my preferred later round quarterback targets. After round 17, if I still need a third quarterback, I'm probably looking at Minshew there. I think he showed enough last year with the Colts that he probably could start for the Raiders here for a length of time in the season that is pretty good for getting him on your best ball team. The only way that I think he doesn't wind up starting the majority of the year, because I do think he's better than Aiden O'Connell, right? I think everybody could agree to that, right? Because I think even before this news happened, I'm pretty sure Minshew's ADP was higher than Aiden O'Connell, even though Aiden O'Connell was technically the starter there, right? So I think everybody agrees on that. The only thing that I think there's a lot of risk is that if the Raiders somehow vault up, what it looks like they're going to maybe have to go into the top 10 to get one of these quarterbacks here, unless they spend day 2 draft capital on somebody like Bo Nix or Penix, right? So I think that if you're drafting in the later rounds and you're looking for a third quarterback, to me, Minshew is really set up nicely to just get some points there. What about you, Jeremiah? What do you think about Minshew now on the Raiders?
It takes the pressure off the Raiders at pick 13. They want to trade up. But if it doesn't work out and they get outbid, Minshew's going to be the perfect short-term quarterback. He's good to be a bridge quarterback or take the reins if needed. So I like this move for the Raiders. It's a stable guy, but also if they bring somebody in, it won't be anything too threatening to a rookie. Like you said, Bo Nix might be somebody who comes in. It would be a good transition.
So, Jeremiah, we're going to go a little more rapid fire here with some of these other quarterbacks because, let's face it, their best ball relevance is minimal. What do you think about Mariota signing with the Commanders for 1 year, $6 million?
I see this signals Jayden Daniels to the Commanders. DK Sportsbooks have Jayden Daniels to be the number 2 overall favorite at -145.
And Mitchell Trubisky to the Bills. What are we thinking with this?
Irrelevant on Underdog. He'll be a good stash in Superflex Dynasty. How about for Drew Lock? 1 year, $5 million.
So going to the Giants, to me, this sort of signals that the Giants are going to go wide receiver with their 6th pick in the first round. I think it adds less concern that Daniel Jones is going to face some rookie competition, which to me, that backdoor stack is still viable. So I have no worries about those teams that I've backdoor my way into a Giant stack.
About Tyrod Taylor to the Jets.
Sure, he's better than Zach Wilson, right? And that's really all we're looking for with a backup on the Jets. Aaron Rodgers is going to be the starter there for hopefully the entire year. Although you never know what happens with an old guy like him. Could get injured again. He could also be the vice president of the United States. We never know here, Jeremiah. But that being said, the addition of Tyrod Taylor does increase the floor of both Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall in the event that Aaron Rodgers misses some time for injury reasons or for his now political aspirations. Jeremiah, a couple other quick hits here. Sam Darnold to the Vikings for 1 year, $10 million. Darnold's ADP right now is 236 on Underdog. What are we thinking about this?
So the Vikings have pick 11. They're in a similar situation to the Raiders. They'll likely be competing to trade up. Remember, the Chargers are at 5. The Titans are at 7. Will it be a game of trying to jump the Giants at 6? The Giants may have quarterback aspirations themselves. We've seen Tennessee go and sign Calvin Ridley to 4-year, $92 million deal. We'll get to that later. So maybe the pressure is off Tennessee. They already have Levis. They may be inclined to trade that pick. So we'll see if the Vikings jump up. The Vikings and the Raiders seem to have a little competition here that could be brewing moving up in the draft.
Jameis Winston is now on the Browns. He's in the same quarterback room as Deshaun Watson. He signed a deal for 1 year, $4 million. What are we thinking about this, Jeremiah?
Joe Flacco, very popular in Cleveland. He won the Comeback Player of the Year award. He worked his way into being selective for the right job. He can wait now. All right, the Browns prior to Flacco, they felt the pain of not having a backup quarterback. Half the league felt that. So now Jameis is a good football fit. Now, did you have a draft you wanted to go over?
I do, Jeremiah. I'm currently on the clock here with pick 90. This was a team that I've got Lamar quarterback. I've got Bijan at 7. Isaiah Pacheco, I took at pick 55, about 10 picks below ADP. I have Brandon Ayuk, Drake London, DeAndre Hopkins as my wide receivers. And I went Njoku here at pick 79, although I did that very bitterly because I had Kyle Pitts basically lined up to go there. But the news broke that Cousins signed shortly before this pick, and Pitts went literally the pick ahead of where I took Njoku here. So you live by the slow draft, you die by the slow draft sometimes, and I certainly died here. But with respect to where this draft is now, what do you think about where we're at right now? I've got Diontae Johnson queued up as another wide receiver addition here. I think we're going to talk about him a little bit later in the show. But what do you think about this team so far, Jeremiah, and what we're looking at right now with respect to who to take here at pick 90?
I like what you did. You had to pivot and prospect. In sales, we always pivot. We always prospect to somewhere new. You have Lamar Jackson. It looks like he's on stack, right?
He is a naked Lamar, correct.
And not the worst thing. Bijan Robinson and Drake London. I see how you have queued up a little bit later. You're going to have Kirk Cousins. I think that'll work out beautifully later. I really like for you, you live by the slow draft, you die by the slow draft. I really like the idea of you going for Diontae Johnson. He's had 144, 169, and 147 receptions from 2020 to 2022. It's stuck in my head. I can remember it now. And he's bound to possibly lead the league in targets with the Carolina Panthers. Adam Thielen, 103 receptions, number 9 in the league overall last year. We can print. Targets are earned, and this would be your 4th wide receiver. I really like you where somebody took Kyle Pitts on you. You can take Diontae Johnson on somebody else, and then we can look later for Kirk Cousins.
I think that's a great idea, Jeremiah. Although me sniping Diontae Johnson from somebody probably doesn't feel as painful as them taking Pitts from me here. But we'll get revenge in some way, shape, or form. And we're going to be adding Diontae Johnson to the squad right now.
You know where you might be able to get that would be Darnell Mooney.
There we go. That's right. That's it. You're exactly right.
Heading into our next topic, we've got the running backs in free agency. We got rapid fire based on the news, the landing spots. Are you going higher in drafts or lower in drafts? Where would you take them? I'll lead off with Saquon Barkley. The Eagles signed him to a 3-year, $37 million deal. ADP of 17 in round 2. I am in. I'm all about some Saquon. We were in before. We had wanted the prospect of going to Houston, but Philly is not so bad at all. A.J. Brown is at 10 for ADP. Barkley is 17. Hurts 35. Devonta Smith 37. Good luck getting those 4 in a stack. I think you'll now, though, be able to get 3 of the 4, because what has been the white whale prior to this? It's been the A.J. Brown, Hurts, and Devonta Smith stack. Now you're going to be able to break up, maybe getting A.J. Brown and Barkley and the wraparound. Maybe Barkley raises and you're close to the turn, and then you'll be able to get one of Hurts or Devonta Smith. Ideally, you're trying to get Hurts just to make that completed stack. But again, you're getting exposure of Philadelphia Eagles. But again, good luck getting those 4. Ed, I'll have to ask you, Josh Jacobs, 1 year, up to $14 million. It's been explained that it's a 1-year deal with 3 one-year options afterwards. They're going to take it year to year. ADP of 47 in the late 4th round. Where are you on Josh Jacobs?
I'm in at that price. I think I would probably take him as high as where ETN's going. He's going to have that backfield all to himself. Just for frame of reference, ETN is going at pick 33, which is pretty close to the end of the 3rd. I pretty much have Jacobs about 1 round higher than where he's going now based upon where he landed in free agency. So I love the landing spot, and I will take him all day here at pick 47.
Now, next up, good job, Ed, with that. Derrick Henry, the Ravens, huge story. 2 years, $16 million, ADP of 54 in round 5.
So I'm probably out at this price only because I got him a lot earlier in the year at that ADP of 65, even later. I think he's going to continue to get hyped here. This was the nuts landing spot for him. It's the perfect offensive system for him to just be a bulldozer to Lamar's agile quarterback running all over the place vibe that he's got going on. But I think I'll probably out only because I've got a lot of him thus far. But I wouldn't fault you if you take him here. You could do worse. You could do worse. So,
and I know in prior shows you've gotten some really good exposure to him. Where are you on Joe Mixon? Traded to the Texans, ADP of 86 in round 8.
Oh, man. They seem like a team that is just going to add somebody during the draft, don't they? They can't go into the season with just Joe Mixon here. They just can't. I'm probably reluctantly out at this ADP, round 8. Although that is like a dead area. Really, that's where wide receiver dries up. So I'll probably have some of them on my squad if I'm not pivoting to a quarterback or tight end there. But I probably will likely grab, a Kyler or another quarterback around round 8 as opposed to taking Mixon. Because it just seems to me that the Texans are going to add more to that backfield. And Mixon's just going to get washed out by whatever rookie comes in. Jeremiah, some other running backs that signed, we have DeAndre Swift, who went to the Bears for 3 years, $24 million. His ADP is at pick 95, which is the late round 8 spot. What do you think of that landing spot, and what do you think about him going in underdog drafts where he's going right now?
I'm going to match with Bear stacks. Roshan is toast. I'm out, and I won't buy the dip. So, Roshan, goodbye. We made a mistake. We move on.
Pour one out for Roshan, man. I've got way too much of him before Swift signed it. It's just so sad. But Tony Pollard, 3 years, $21 million, going to the Titans. Where are we at with this, Jeremiah?
I'm not really interested, but I will buy the Spears dip. Now, we were in on Spears big time. We'll take a temporary L because there will be a Spears dip, but I will buy the chips and the dip for him. Aaron Jones, Vikings, 1 year, $7 million, ADP of 65 in round 6. How do you feel about him?
I will buy. I think that he's probably going to have, the backfield for the most part to himself. I don't think they're going to add anyone else. They got Ty Chandler, they got him. Maybe they add another back, but I think that he's primarily going to be the guy there. And I think that even if you have a bad quarterback, because if they're not able to get a rookie or somebody like that in, if they're like forced to start somebody like a Nick Mullins type again, they've shown that they're able to have success with a quarterback that's like that for the skill position players. Right? And Aaron Jones is not washed. He ended last year on an absolute tear in the playoffs. He scored 19.1 fantasy points the final week of the season. And then in the playoffs, he had a 32-point game against Dallas and then 16.6 fantasy points in San Francisco in the loss there. So he's not washed, and I'm in at this current ADP.
How about Austin Eckler, 2 years, $8.3 million, 82 ADP, round 7?
I am probably out only because Brian Robinson, I think, is still going later than him. And I will pivot to B-Rob every time because I think at this point in their careers, Brian Robinson might be better. And it's sad to say that because Eckler is an exciting player. He is somebody who was on a couple of successful fantasy football teams of mine, but it's unfortunately probably true at this point. I'm out.
What do you think of Devin Singletary, 3 years, $60 million, going to the Giants?
As a Giant fan, this pains me because there's nothing less exciting than just Devin Singletary. He is just the quintessential plotter running back, and especially since Saquon left, it's just like they replaced him with just a league average starter, right? But at an ADP of 125, I can't see how you don't take some shots on him. It's not going to be something that you're going to be excited about in drafting Devin Singletary, but again, at 125 ADP, especially with the rookie wide receivers like no longer really there around there, you can't really get Mitchell or Worthy or even Ladd McConkey. Sometimes he goes up too. So I would probably be in at this ADP because there is going to be opportunity there based upon the contract. Jeremiah, speaking about some other running backs that were a little more downward on the free agency rankings lists that were out there, we had Zach Moss signing a 2-year contract for $8 million, and he is going off the board at pick 142. Now with the Bengals, what are you doing with him?
I'm more bullish on Chase Brown. I'm hoping for any kind of a Chase Brown dip. The NFL draft can always snipe us on Chase Brown, but I love the role no matter what. So not so much a Zach Moss thing, but just we're in on Chase Brown.
Man, that's interesting. I really like Zach Moss there, and particularly since he's going so much later than Brown, I'm probably more in on him. It's interesting that you have a contrarian take there. Perhaps we could suss that out a little bit later. Antonio Gibson also signed a 3-year deal with the Patriots. He's going at pick 180, which is round 15. What do we make of this, Jeremiah?
Hey, what's dead may never die. I'm putting this to rest for now. I recall a Simpsons episode where Homer and Bart get duped by some carnival workers and they lose their house. And Bart and Homer have to find a way to get their house back. They do, and they trick the carnival workers. And the father says to his son, "There's no shame in being beaten by the best." And that's really how I feel. I've been bullish on Antonio Gibson for his whole career. We have that epic Thanksgiving outing against the Cowboys, but his career really hasn't taken off. And you just got to admit when you've been beaten by the best and it really just hasn't worked out.
Yeah, man, it's sad to say that, especially as an Antonio Gibson truther, but man, it's probably true. It's probably true. You could hope that he does some good stuff with the Pats, catching some passes, maybe siphoning some work from Amandre Stevenson, but it's probably not going to happen. Let's be real. Jeremiah, you got a team that you drafted recently. I think we wanted to grade some of the teams that we all drafted. Can you want to explain to everybody the team that you drafted out there, and maybe we'll take a look at it and go through it and see what we like and what we don't like?
Yeah, I want to make sure I get my grades up. We're here at night school. We're taking a little more attention and detail to what we have going on and how we're performing. And looking at this team, if I could see what my grade might be at quarterback, I've got Burrow, Drake May, and Geno Smith. I have 3. This is a 3-7-7-3 build. So going down to my tight ends, I have Sam Laporta, Jatavion Sanders, and Noah Fant. Going up to my running backs, Devon Achane, Tajay Spears. I pour some out for his dip. James Conner, Chase Brown, Braylon Allen, Jalen Wright, and Michael Carter. At the receiver position, my 7 receivers are Jamar Chase, Drake London, JSN, Jamison Williams, Ladd McConkey, Andre Yoshevitz, and A.T. Perry. So all around for some of my stacks, I got Joe Burrow stacked with Chase Brown at running back, Jamar Chase, Andre Yoshevitz, and then maybe we could get JT Sanders drafted by them, but we're not banking on it. For Geno Smith, I have JSN, and now it's worked out, Noah Fant. We wanted him to go somewhere else, but he's going to stay, so I've got the stack there. And then we have a little gift that could unwrap with Drake May, although besides Ladd McConkey, I really don't have too many rookies on this roster. So how would you grade this team? What would you improve? And what do you think we did?
I think you did well with the obviously some of the stacks. You got the main stack there, which if there's anything that we learned from last year is that you have to have the quarterback and the big wide receiver. That's going to give you a large spike week, and that could push you up if this team winds up advancing. So yeah, good job by you on that. Obviously, love the value with Drake London. That's only going higher and higher. I think that he's probably going to be a late second round pick in short order. With respect to the other wide receivers, you've got a lot of potential swings here with JSN, Jamison Williams, Ladd. I think that if you were to improve somewhere, I probably want to maybe take a bit more safety with one of these guys, maybe get some floor in there, either through like Jacoby Myers or even like a Hollywood Brown maybe type, right? If you want to still have that volatile swing to swing, but have some type of vet presence, right? Because I don't know about you, Jeremiah, but I'm a big proponent of JSN. I know that he's gotten a lot of, lack of hype on Twitter lately because after Tyler Lockett essentially signed that extension with the Seahawks, but I'm still in on him. Looks like you did take him at pick 54. His ADP has dropped a little bit, but overall, this receiver group is pretty solid. You got a lot of swings in here, and to be fair, this is a tournament play, so you're going to want to swing for the fences here. So I don't mind it. Running back looks pretty solid, even though Tajay Spears is taking a hit with the Tony Pollard signing. I still think that Spears is probably going to take that backfield at some point from Pollard. I do think that of the players that signed at running back this season, the player that has the most Miles Sanders-ish type of potential is definitely Tony Pollard. So I do think I still am bullish on Spears, even though his ADP has fallen. You've got him here. It's okay. You did get a huge value, though, in James Conner. Looks like at the time of this draft, he had an ADP of 79, pick 80. You got him almost a full round later than most other people were getting him. So you did a great job there. And with respect to Geno, you've got him paired up with JSN. I know that probably when this draft concluded, we were hoping that Noah Fant would go somewhere else, but he is back in Seattle. Yeah. So you did get like a backdoor Seattle stack there. And with respect to May, who knows where he's going, right? He's probably maybe the Pats. I don't know. Of all the teams to draft a white wide receiver in Ladd McConkey, would it be the Pats with it? So maybe he could backdoor into that. With respect to some of the later round running backs, the other thing about this build is pretty nice too, is obviously that Jalen Wright exposure. You got him at pick 222, which I believe was the 19th round. So super sick there. He's obviously skyrocketed up the boards after he blazed at the combine. So I think he did an overall good job with this build. Me personally, I probably would have taken it a little bit more safer wide receiver insofar as you have JSN, Jamison Williams, the rookie in McConkey, and then just real flyers in Yosovich. Is that how you say his name? I don't even know how to say it. You said it.
Yoshi, so I'll say Yoshevitz.
Yoshevitz. All right. So that's how you say his name. I see. As somebody, I've been pivoting toward Charlie Jones late in drafts because I cannot pronounce Yosevich's name. I just can't do it. So I don't draft him. But that being said, I probably just would have been a little more safer at wide receiver, maybe just like one or two vets in there. But aside from that, I think this is a pretty solid team. And we didn't even touch on Sam Laporta, really, which is obviously he's going to be your smash tight end play. And that's why you waited so long on tight end before you draft them again. So I think overall good. I probably would have gone a little safer at 1 or 2 points with wide receiver. But other than that, a solid build.
So if you say, would this be a grade from a 80? Let's put a number on it. Would you put an 80 to 90 or 90 to 100?
I would probably put an 80 to 90 on it, to be fair. Like I said, I think that, and who knows, I could be wrong, right? A lot of these guys can hit and go crazy, but I do think that, like I said, I probably would have gotten a little bit more safer with respect to wide receiver. I also think that obviously free agency was a little unlucky to this team insofar as you have Chase Brown dealing with competition from Zach Moss now. You have Tajay Spears dealing with competition with Tony Pollard, even though we do think that Spears, I think, or at least I think that Spears is eventually going to beat him up the depth chart. But, that being said, I'd probably put it around an 80 to 90 as opposed to 90, 100. So
what do you think? Like an 84?
We'll say solid B plus. Jeremiah.
Okay.
Solid B plus.
I'll take it.
Sure. Let's go 84. Jeremiah, we talked about this draft, and there are in drafts, right? We've got a lot of different players that are going near each other that we've got to make tough decisions on. So we're going to talk about some players that are going near each other where you have to make that tough decision on. In this exercise, you're going to be doing like about 10 drafts, right? So what percentage of those drafts would you be going with these players? Basically, if you're drafting the team, you're trying to make a decision between these two guys, when are you clicking them compared to the other guy? We'll start with the quarterback position first. We'll go Jalen Hurts versus who's going off at pick 35 versus Lamar Jackson at pick 41. What are you doing when you're faced with that situation in drafts if you're looking for quarterback that early?
So really, if I'm going to go 50-50 split, they're just players who are very much on an even level plane, especially in this tournament setting. I'm going to want Hurts if I get A.J. Brown, now Saquon Barkley, Devonta Smith, and Lamar Jackson. It's a little more of Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews. So I'm going to go, and now Derrick Henry added in. So there is quite a group for both teams. I'm going to split it 50-50, and really, if I get one teammate for them, I'm going to lean in that direction. Now, I'm going to commit to quarterback that early in the event that I have them. It's really only going to be when I have some of the other players. I notice I'm not getting Hurts without any of those early skill position players. You can get that backdoor stack with Goddard. But really for these two, if I pair one of their teammates, we're talking about a 50-50 split.
What about some running backs that are going off the board at around the same spot? You've got James Cook with an ADP of 45 and Isaiah Pacheco with an ADP of 47. How are you tackling those two guys in drafts?
I'm going to go 60-40 James Cook to Isaiah Pacheco. James Cook has that archetype that we'd like, where he could take over just a little bit more, has a little more opportunity in the passing game. It's such a thin margin, but neither of them really excite me. I'm not getting much of them, but I saw them on the board, and they're so close together. They seem very much interchangeable. Again, you'll go to your team builds, and of course, if you're on that Chiefs path, you will go Isaiah Pacheco. But I'm going to lean 60 to 65% James Cook. Take a stand there.
All right. And then some more veteran running backs here. We've got Austin Eckler, who's going off the board at pick 82, and Najee Harris at 83, right where the board, I think, gets a little ugly. What are you doing with that spot there? Who are you drafting between Austin Eckler and Najee Harris?
It's amazing how just about a year ago, or even in, say, September into October, this would have just been a no-brainer question. What are we talking about with Austin Eckler? It's a slam dunk. I go Najee Harris here. I'm talking 7 times, maybe 8 times out of 10. I'm going to say 7-3 just to, on the off chance, Austin Eckler is recovered from his injury and he is still spry and he has something left in the tank. But I'm really going to go for Najee Harris. We're bullish on Arthur Smith and we're bullish on the Pittsburgh Steelers with Najee Harris. The fit with the Commanders, we're really not quite sure. So right now I'm chopping it up. I'm taking Najee Harris much more than Austin Eckler. Now for you, Ed, I love this one. This is very, I can't wait to ask this. Kyle Pitts at 76 or Brock Bowers at 77?
Oh man, it's so sad that we're here with Kyle Pitts because like we alluded to before about a week ago, he wasn't going anywhere near Brock Bowers, but now that he is, it makes you think that maybe taking Bowers this high might be a mistake. Might be, especially we don't have any of the testing numbers yet. I think Georgia had their pro day today and he did not test. He's going to push that off, I think, until April. So we're not going to really have any solid metrics on Bowers up until the late part of when these preseason drafts, right? These pre-draft, the pre-drafts to the draft, right? When they stop, right? We're not going to really have too much info on Bowers and how he's going to test until the very end here. So I think between these two guys at 76 and 77, I'd probably divvy it up. I would say 65, 35 Pitts. I think so. Like I said, I as somebody who's been taking Bowers at around this spot the whole season so far, and the way that free agency worked out for Kyle Pitts, I think that taking Bowers this high might have been a mistake. And I'm willing to cop to that. So 65% of the time, I'm probably going Kyle Pitts.
Now pivot over to Marquise Brown, who's rumored to possibly go to the Chiefs at 110, and then the gift that could unwrap with Adonai Mitchell at 106.
Yeah, this is interesting too, right? I do like Hollywood Brown a lot. I also like Adonai Mitchell a lot. Adonai Mitchell also blazed at the combine. This is really a tough one. I feel like you saved the tough ones for me here, Jeremiah. But that being said, I'd probably go Mitchell a little bit more so than Brown. Probably about 60-40 Mitchell. Actually, no, yeah, I take that back because I have so much Mitchell already. Let's do 50-50 Brown and Mitchell, especially with the hype landing spot with the Chiefs. Although we've seen that landing spot hyped up before with many other players and has not come to fruition just yet. Maybe it does here for Brown. So I'll go 50-50. And I do like Hollywood as a player and as a best ball play. So we'll do 50-50 here with these two.
Now, this is interesting here in a 4-point passing touchdown, and rushing touchdowns are 6 points. Jayden Daniels with the Konami goodness at 128, or Kirk Cousins in the Bananas offense at 129 for the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, I think just because of that Konami code to Daniels, I probably would lean Daniels 65-35 as opposed to Cousins. I'm probably looking for Cousins. The only time I'm drafting Cousins really is if I've got a Falcon, right? At least one. I would feel really bad if I had a team that had a naked Kirk Cousins on it. All right. I'd feel really bad. Jayden Daniels, I think you could potentially pull that off in a draft because he's got that Konami code upside. He could go to, and I know that we've talked about him going to Washington now. He could go to the Commanders and he could just score all the fantasy points with his legs and leave Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson out to dry, like for multiple games here. So I would probably go Daniels over Kirk. I'm probably only looking for Kirk if I've got at least a Falcon, and preferably the two primary pass catchers in Pitts and London.
That's a good call. I like how you analyze that last one. If you have some Falcons, you go Cousins, but Jayden Daniels brings so much. Very good job on that. I'm going to start off with a draft. We'll pivot over. All right, I'm on the clock. All right, I'm at pick 34, and I've started with Jahmyr Gibbs and Devon Achane. Now, here are two guys who you got, what, 4th, 5th round in Gibbs. Achane was in the double-digit rounds. And now you have to pay the price. Gibbs at 10, Achane at 15 overall. Here I have in my queue at pick 34. I'm tempted to go Sam Laporta just to get the onesie position locked up and then go attack receiver. Also on the board here in the queue, Jalen Waddle, Malik Neighbors, who we talked about last week. We're bullish on him. Devonta Smith, Keenan Allen. Those two quarterbacks we just discussed on how we're splitting it. Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson. Well, we don't have either of their teammates. So right now I'm not thinking in that manner. Which direction would you go here?
Laporta is tempting, although I do think you could wait at tight end a bit longer and not feel too pressed there because you've got a lot of other options down the board. And particularly with Pitts flying up, I feel like I don't want to say the tight end's deep this year because everybody says that every year and it never is true. But I feel like it feels a lot deeper than it has been in prior years. All right. Do you feel that way or no, Jeremiah? That it's
Absolutely. All across the board, you're still getting such great values. We're paying the piper for Sam Laporta. Those of us who got him, and this being Sam Laporta, late in dynasty startups, late in best ball last year, he's going to be a late round keeper for a lot of people. The sticker shock, the inflation, whatever you want to call it, it's a steep price now. If I don't pick him here, my next pick is at pick 39. I'm not going to get him. But like you said, there's other tight ends to be had. So how do we feel about Jalen Waddle or Malik Neighbors as my number one receiver?
I would probably it really depends how you want to attack this year. I don't know what your exposure to Tua looks like. If you're looking for a Dolphin stack here with Tua, if that's something that you want to go for in this draft, I think you pull the trigger on Waddle. That's probably, if I'm looking for the correlation play, I do that. If you're a bit more comfortable and just not, you don't want Tua, right? If you don't want to draft Tua this draft, I would probably go Neighbors. Or alternatively, if you're looking for more Hurts, you could probably get Devonta Smith. Although I probably would want AJ Brown over that Devonta Smith pairing with Hurts. For me, it's either Waddle or Neighbors. It depends if you have Tua on too many teams at this point.
I would actually go a little bit to your other point. Going back to our last exercise, Sam Laporta is somebody who I have a lot of exposure to, and I can fade off just a little bit. I really don't have much for Waddle. I have an okay amount of Neighbors. So I really think I like what you said about stacking with Achane and Waddle. These Lions and these Dolphins are going to be in some good spots to connect. In the event we have Tua and Goff, they're always there to cap it. So I like what you say. I could easily go get Laporta. If this is another draft, I'm going to get Laporta. But I'm going to go in the direction of Jalen Waddle. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. For definitely insofar as you could wait on tight end and still get a good value there. I think Waddle had a pretty down year last year because the guy just was playing hurt all the time. I had him on a couple key fantasy squads. I was constantly monitoring his health, and I think that he would have smashed a lot more like he did in 2022 if he just wasn't battling injuries the entire year. So I think that this is a buy low opportunity on Waddle, and I would definitely endorse you pressing the button on him here.
And I like the point that you made about that. I'm going to press Jalen Waddle. With Jalen Waddle, if I'm completely out on him based on last year, I could be completely exposed in a bad way in not having any Jalen Waddle. So I'm going to make sure I click on him some. To your point, he could easily bounce right back up like he did his rookie season. And then, of course, the health of Tyreek Hill, you really don't know what could happen with him. It's a violent, tough game. So I like going there. I've got some flexibility. And where I don't have Amon-Ra, I don't have Laporta, I may be able to stack with Jared Goff later. And then, of course, there's options with Jameson Williams. And then we'll see what happens with Josh Reynolds. Down the board for the Dolphins, we have that opportunity later to go and get Tua. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and then I want to pivot over to our wide receivers. We had some news come in. Calvin Ridley signs a 4-year, $92 million deal with the Titans. Calvin Ridley, 56 ADP, 5th round. He's just behind Terry McLaurin and Jayden Reed, and he's just before George Pickens, Jordan Addison, and Christian Kirk. What do you think about him?
Man, I feel like I would still prefer Christian Kirk over Calvin Ridley. I have been that way all year, and now with them on separate teams, I still feel that way. Calvin Ridley is on the Titans now. He's got that great contract, a crazy contract. That's just shocking how much he wound up getting paid for an age 29 receiver, in my opinion. But he's got DeAndre Hopkins on his team, right? And who's going to win that target share battle? I think it's going to be Hopkins. Hopkins didn't show any signs of slowing down. He's been a 30% target share guy like his entire career. Unless he's going to get hurt, maybe Calvin Ridley sees some targets there. Maybe it's going to be a really consolidated target tree between him and Hopkins. I think that's probably how it's likely going to play out. But then the question there is, how many times is Will Levis going to throw it a game? Is the Titans offense just going to be YOLO Levis ball? That sounds great from a fantasy perspective, but I don't think they're going to do that for real football purposes, right? I think with where he's going now and the situation that he landed in free agency, I'm probably not going to get too much Calvin Ridley on my best ball teams at this point.
1 for 1 in that earlier exercise we had. Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley out of 10 drafts. What's your split going to be?
Oh, it's probably 70-30 Kirk, quite honestly. Probably is. Yeah.
I can do that.
For sure.
For wide receiver, Darnell Mooney pivoting over to the Atlanta Falcons signing, ADP of 202 in round 17. How are you with Darnell Mooney?
Yeah, there was another guy that was getting hyped. Oh, maybe he'd go to the Chiefs. Maybe he'd do this. Maybe that. Winds up on the Falcons. He's clearly going to be an ancillary target there. He's probably going to catch a couple deep balls a game from Kirk Cousins. Probably provides some best ball value for a couple spike weeks. Sure, I'll take him in round 17. Why not? If I've got 5 running backs already, and even if I got 4, if I'm just like thin at wide receiver, I'll probably take him if I'm looking for some explosion there. The guy you're talking about Hopkins, who's commanding 30% target share, right? Darnell Mooney was pretty up there in target share his sophomore year. Right? So that player is still there somewhere. I can't imagine that he just disappeared. So I'll take a stab on him that late in drafts for sure.
Now going over to Gabe Davis with the Jacksonville Jaguars, ADP of 132, round 11. I remember last week you had a team with him and Khalil Shakir, so that team's got a little split there. How you feel about Gabe Davis?
I feel fine with Gabe. He's going right around. I don't think he's seen too much of a spike in his ADP. He's going right around where he has normally been going. He's likely going to be the same type of guy that he was on the Bills, but with Trevor Lawrence throwing him the ball instead of Josh Allen. Obviously a downgrade there, and his ADP is depressed for that reason, and it will probably continue to be there. But I still think that there's some spike week upside there, particularly because with Calvin Ridley gone now, I mean, that he's like the guy that fills that role in the offense with respect to the outside vertical threat, right? He's got that locked down, that position. I feel fine taking him where he's at. I'm also somewhat of a reluctant Gabe Davis stans. I'll be okay taking him where he's at. His ADP hasn't changed, and my position on him really hasn't changed too much. Jeremiah, some other wide receivers that signed. Noah Brown is going back to Houston. He's got an ADP of 222, round 19. He had some pretty interesting spike weeks last season. What do you think of that?
As Michael Scott would say in The Office, where he slams a desk, thank you. CJ Stroud, he's had Nico Collins and Tank Dell in front of him. Give us a guy after CJ Stroud to stack him with. I know it's late in the draft. He's not going to be a Pro Bowler, but a very good piece. I like that for these Houston Texans stacks. Now Dalton Schultz comes back, so we are getting a clearer picture of what's happening in Houston. They could absolutely bring in another weapon, but I really do actually like Noah Brown late at his round 19 price. Excellent.
What about Devontae Parker? I believe he was cut by the Pats. He's picked up by the Eagles. ADP of 239, which is potentially undrafted. He's going around 20-ish. What are you thinking about Devontae Parker on the Eagles?
Been out, going to stay out until we see Jalen Hurts support more than the narrow target tree of Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, and even those mixed match games with Dallas Goedert. I don't know if I can even confidently click that button for Devontae Parker. And then that just assumes that there's no competition that may be brought in to the NFL draft in 2024. I'm out on Devontae Parker regardless of the price, but he does have a new landing spot, and we file it just to know Devontae Parker is now a Philadelphia Eagle.
Jeremiah, I want to find the one guy that is in on Devontae Parker. That guy's got to be out there somewhere. And if he is, God bless him. But I've got a draft going on right now. I'm picking at pick 27. So far I'm picking out of the 3 spot. This is a big board. I went Tyreek Hill with pick number 3. I then went Josh Allen at pick 22. I took him over Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Pittman, some other wide receivers that I otherwise would have potentially considered there, because I was looking to pair him with Diggs at this pick here, pick 27. Unfortunately, that did not come to fruition, as Diggs was picked at pick 23, one pick after I picked Allen. So boo hiss. But I'm staring at a board now. I've got a couple wide receiver options here. I've got Rashee Rice, I'd be picking him a little less than ADP. We've got Drake London, who we've discussed before. I've got him highlighted. And then I got Waddle listed here. Waddle's going off the board with an ADP of pick 32. He's not going to make it back to me when I pick in the 4th round. So I am considering him here only because that stack has been somewhat elusive for me. What do we think about this spot here? What do we think about our options here, Jeremiah?
Oh, good. We're really on the chessboard. Josh Allen, I like the fact that you took that stab at him. You didn't get Stephon Diggs. Guess what? The Stephon Diggs person isn't going to have Josh Allen. Now, Stephon Diggs may not have Josh Allen this year. There's some odds out there for his trade market, where his next team might be. We don't know if it'll come to that. There's always some circular drama for Stephon Diggs and the Buffalo Bills. So we'll assume for now that Josh Allen stays. I like your point that you made about Tyreek Hill. Again, we've been blind to Jalen Waddle. Now we have Jalen Waddle in our queue. We're getting drunk off of Drake London, and it's well-deserved. But they don't always ring the bell at the top, and this could be an area where, with Rashee Rice, we're getting a little bit too high out over our skis. I personally don't think we are, but we can at least entertain that question now that Drake London is steaming up. I like the point you made about Waddle. You said he's not going to come back. So now we're in this predicament of we value Rashee Rice and maybe Drake London more than Jalen Waddle. But at this point, do we value going for Waddle with some game theory to stack with Tua later and then potentially getting Dalton Kincaid? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that is, I think, where I'm pivoting now, personally, after missing on Diggs. I think that if I get this AFC East stack with the Dolphins and then Josh Allen and Dalton Kincaid, I'm really liking that. To me, I will pull that up and I will think, man, sexy. I think that's where I'm leaning towards. And I think for that reason, even though I do both Rice and London, I went a lot more than Jalen Waddle here. I do think that for the sake of just hitting that stack, I'm going to do it, because there is no way Waddle's coming back to me. I think the next pick I have here, I can't think of the thing. 46, yeah. So he would have to fall like more than 12 picks. That's probably not happening. So I'm going to go Jalen Waddle here. Try to finally hit on this stack here, and welcome to the team, Jalen Waddle.
Excellent job. I like what you did. You've got 2 Dolphins players. You have Josh Allen. You've talked about personally intra-division matchups. They end up in those playoff weeks having the divisional matchup. So you have a possible shootout that could be We'll have to leave it up to the schedule gods, but a good start there in that draft. A very unique build. Now let's pivot over to tight end. For Noah Fant, he stays in Seattle, ADP of 212 in round 18. I'll just say we drafted plenty of him, but at what cost, right? 18th, 19th, 20th round. He's just going to stay where he was. So we had this idea of this bullish nature of Noah Fant going somewhere else and raising maybe 3-4 rounds. Now that's not going to happen. He's staying in round 18 to 20. The price we paid is likely the output we'll get. So we just have not gained anything massive on him, but we're just getting the price as is. So it's a bummer, but at the same time, we're not necessarily losing. It's not like we were getting him in the 15th round, and now he's going to dip and slide back. He's been where he's been, and now he's going to stay where he is. We're sad about it, but we love the play, and I still like him as a third tight end in the builds. Now, how do you feel about Irv Smith going to the Chiefs? ADP of 239, round 20.
Can you feel about Irv Smith going to the Chiefs that late? I don't think so. Maybe he's just a shot in the dark in case Kelsey gets hurt, right? Which could happen. But even if he does step into the starting lineup, is that somebody that you're confident is going to crest double digit? No, he's not. He's not going to do that. Yeah, listen, cool landing spot, but Irv Smith is dead to me and has been dead for many years. So I will not be drafting him at all, even at that depressed ADP. Another tight end that's going super late that essentially just swap spots with Irv Smith. We got Mike Gesicki going to the Bengals in free agency. Jeremiah, what are you thinking about Mike Gesicki here?
It really front burner, back burner analysis. These teams have to manage what's most important. T. Higgins is really the pressing issue. With the picks at 18 and 49 in the first and the second round of the draft for the Bengals, bringing in Mike Gesicki on this contract is up to $3.25 million. It's not some huge, heavy contract. This buys them time to sort out T. Higgins. If they don't sort things out with T. Higgins, then they can allocate some of that draft capital at 18 or 49 to go and get a wide receiver to fill in for T. Higgins. Now, there would be compensation for T. Higgins in the form of a draft pick. So the Bengals could also team plan that way, roster construct that way. So let's just say between pick 18 and round 1, pick 49, maybe there's a pick between 18 and 49 that the Bengals land for T. Higgins. Maybe it's a second round pick. It could be more, right? I like getting Mike Gesicki here. I think he's more of a football fit, not so much a fantasy fit. Where you have Bowers and JT Sanders, there's less pressure to go get them. And on the front burner, you can go and chase that wide receiver. And it's interesting. Theo Johnson is a fellow Penn State alumni. Maybe he could be had later in the draft. And then you got Mike Gesicki, two players whose speed scores, all their athletic metrics, their measurables, most of them live in the upper 90th percentile. So that might be just a little fit there if T. Higgins ends up settling and he gets a contract or he stays and he's happy to play on the tag. Then I would look to see maybe shifting up in the draft. The Bengals could then shift tight end in the draft to the front burner. How do you feel about Gerald Everett, ADP of 234, round 20 to the Bears?
Man, I was like taking Cole Kmet if I like whiffed on tight end because I just thought the thesis being like, okay, it's DJ Moore, it's him, and it's not going to be too much else, right? If they don't go receiver, and even if they do go receiver in the first round, right? that receiver is going to take some time to ramp up, probably. Not going to set the world on fire immediately because these receivers do take some time. So I was going Kmet as like not like a first priority, but maybe like a secondary priority at tight end if I whiffed on the first like 12 or 13 with Goddard. But with respect to Everett signing here, I do think that Kmet pick is going to be pretty busty, only because I can't imagine his ADP going up now. I think that they're probably going to split snaps. split route participation. I can't imagine Cole Kmet doing too much that would be considered like, okay, I got to start him in fantasy, right? Or I'm glad that he's on my best ball team now. I think that they're going to basically kill each other with respect to fantasy value. And I'm pretty much out on Cole Kmet at where he's going, although I have seen him fall a little bit in drafts, but I'm out on where he's at.
I like it. We'll pull up our last draft, and then we have one more topic to cover. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight on Best Ball Night School. So here's my team I've got cooking so far. Bijan Robinson at 3. We yanked the steering wheel. He's on the squad. We're getting some numbers up for him. Drake London at 22. And then on the opposite end, Chris Olave, 27. I love heading into the offseason. Talking to you, talking to anybody, the mailman, anybody who would listen. Drake London, Chris Olave. They are 2 players who I think are hammers. All right, shout out to Dynasty Trades in 5. They are hammers that can move up to the first and the second round of your drafts and be in that tier, in that band, maybe like an Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? Now, it's only crazy until it happens, and we have to draft as if players will end up higher in the first round, up into the second round. Drake London and Chris Olave are 2 hammers for me. Things are looking real good for Drake London. So I have Bijan at 3, Drake London at 22, Chris Olave at 27. Now I have my next player in the queue. I've got Amari Cooper at the receiver position, Rome Odunze. I will say with Amari Cooper, he's got Jerry Jeudy now in town, Elijah Moore still there, Deshaun Watson. Last year, it was Joe Flacco, comeback player of the year, who Amari Cooper shined in that playoff, that fantasy football playoff game. Amari Cooper did all that with Joe Flacco. So how do we feel right now? I've also got Trey McBride. We can go in the direction of Jaden Reed, Mark Andrews. What do you like to add to this team?
Man, I'm really glad, Jeremiah, that we like the guys that I was thinking of, you just like immediately put into your queue. We are like one here with respect to where you're going. I'm glad that you got Bijan and London. So you're set up to go tight end later with Pitts. So I don't think you necessarily do it here. So I would probably not go McBride or Andrews. I would save those guys for someone else to take, because you're going to take Pitts. You're probably going to have to take him higher than his ADP, because he is just he's skyrocketing, right? If you want him, right? So with respect to that, I would probably pass on tight end here. I think with the wide receivers that you've got thus far, you've got your hero running back with Bijan. You've got 2 stud alpha wide receivers in London and Olave. I think you roll the dice here with Odunze, quite honestly. I think that's how I would lean it. The guy shredded the combine. He's checking all the boxes with respect to the athleticism metrics, the college production metrics. To me, he's a worthwhile shot here that has some real wild card potential for this type of build here that could really vault it to the next level, I think.
So cool. I like to think that I social engineered that, but really you came down to all of that. You just spit some hot fire here at Night School. So thank you for that. I like where your head's at, going for Rome Odunze. Good point on the tight ends. Great point, actually. Bijan, London. We're going to look later, put it on the back burner, tight end on the back burner. We're going to go and look for Kyle Pitts. And if he's not there, hey, so what? We took a shot. Bronx Tale, De Niro says to his son, hey, we took a shot. So Rome Odunze can be our third receiver. So we've got hero running back, Bijan. We might wait until the 10th plus to go for another running back. We're that crazy. Bijan at 3. We got London Olave. And now Rome Odunze. We're going to add him to the squad. We love it here at Night School. We got a 1-3 build so far, running back, receiver. No quarterbacks yet, no tight ends yet. We will look around for Kyle Pitts later. I'm going to stop presenting here, and then we will go to our last topic. Ed, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but give us your take on Diontae Johnson being traded to the Carolina Panthers. He's ADP 89, round 8. How do you feel about the trade and the Panthers' outlook?
Man, we I had him in my queue earlier in the show, and I think that you have to be a bit more bullish as to where he's at, right? Diontae Johnson is a reception perception savant, right? The dude just gets open, right? He wins his routes constantly. That is what he does in the NFL. And you've got Young on Carolina, who seems to be this type of, I got to see it to throw it types. So I think it's a really good matchup here. I think that based on the competition that Johnson is seeing there, he's got some Adam Thielen, but really not much else there. So why wouldn't Bryce Young just throw it to him every time? Why not? I do like the spot there. I do think that he's going to see a lot of targets. He's probably going to, he has a chance to have a 0 touchdown season, though, potentially. He had one with Pittsburgh. The potential's there, but he's gonna see enough volume that I think he's gonna make a lot of sense going where he is, where you're taking him as like your wide receiver 3, perhaps wide receiver 4, 5, depending on how crazy you want to get with the 0 RB build. So I like him where he's going. Jeremiah, what's your take on this Diontae Johnson landing spot?
So Diontae Johnson has been that perpetual perfect third wide receiver in your fantasy lineups where he'll veer into wide receiver 2. He may have a shot now to be the low end 1 and safely a wide receiver 2 with that volume. We said it before, we'll repeat it again. 2020 to 2022, 6th, 2nd, and 6th in targets in the league. And those were 144, 169, nice, and 147 respectively. Adam Thielen, 8 last year. He was a target machine, had 103 receptions. We are bullish on Diontae Johnson. It is an excellent landing spot. The Panthers have been a poverty franchise last year. We don't love necessarily all the moves that David Tepper has made, but we love Diontae Johnson for Bryce Young. We're calling bottom on Bryce Young too. Bryce Young is going to improve. He's somebody you want to acquire in Dynasty, and I think he needs to be somebody on your radar in these underdog drafts. This has been Night School. This has been Jeremiah and Ed. We're happy to see you, and we'll see you next week. Peace.
School's out.